walk through. And obviously, you guys play for fun. You're not playing 1,000 APM. You're not wanting to learn, how to break a block of concrete with your bare hands necessarily, in terms of spending thousands of hours doing mechanical practice or anything. So we want to kind of find the right balance of like, let's improve, but let's also find a way to just make sure we're doing things that are basically keeping the game fun and progression based, and keeping the game flow in one that kind of avoids the situations you guys are most frustrated by, and kind of keeps the games in the type of games that you guys tend to enjoy a bit more, and hopefully in the midst of all that, addressing as many problems as we can. But yeah, if we can load up one of your recent replays so we can really kind of look at the play in action and start to pick up things, that would be great.
Dragging into Discord?
No, if you just go, if they're from the last week or two, you can just go replays, watch with others.
Yeah, it just gave me this odd error. It said it's temporarily...
Okay, that's a weird one.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
It worked.
You want to just start walking me through this?
Can you make me the lobby host, first of all? So just right-click me, not party leader, but lobby host, and that's going to put me in the driver's seat. Yeah. I'm an old-fashioned gentleman. Nobody else is allowed to drive the car, so...
I've watched a lot of your coaching, so I kind of had a general idea of what we needed to do.
Sweet, very good. Awesome. Well, yeah, basically, this is you guys. It's always Terran Zerg, right? From what I've read.
Always, yes.
Always. Okay, cool. So, syncing up. So Chambers on voice is sort of okay. You're sort of okay. Okay. What do you want me to call you? Human name?
Zerg and Terran are fine.
You want me as
If you're gonna call me by my screen name, it's Dilebron, not DeLebron.
Dilebron? Okay.
Yeah, I got really mad at LeBron one time, and
you had a lot of money. Gambler, I can tell. Okay.
No, I was mad that he left Cleveland. We're from Cleveland.
Oh, okay. All right, good. The good type of mad at a sports fan. Then. Okay.
Yeah, that was heartbreaking.
Normally when people are heartbroken by things, it's usually more of a, you lost me money, you piece of shit. I bet my savings on a game. Okay, cool. All right. So, okay, that's good. Now I can kind of associate voices a little bit more. Can we just once again, Dilebron, can you speak?
Yeah. Am I okay? Do I sound okay?
Yeah, I mean it's a bit garbled and shitty sounding, but we can understand everything you're saying. So it's a laptop mic. It's the best it's gonna get. There's nothing we can do. So which one of you guys has played more like 1v1s? Is one of you like a bit more of a stronger player or?
Me. He doesn't really play 1v1. He just kind of plays with me. So I'll just walk you through what we're doing here. So I'm gonna start out with the Book of Filth Proxy Reaper. And I'm going to cut SCVs at 15, and I'm just going to distract while he builds up for the second push.
Cool. And it's, so is it double 15 racks? So after the second barrack starts, you start building SCVs again?
Yes.
So it's barracks, gas...
I cut 2 SCVs out of this.
Okay, cool. Yeah, barracks, gas, second barracks, and then we should start SCVs. Beautiful. Okay, cool. With this build... Yeah, you imagine you're going second gas about what, like 130, 140? When does that time out? Or do you go straight for a command center afterwards instead of a quick fire?
No. Second gas probably now.
Okay. Beautiful.
After the first Reaper.
All right, cool. Okay, cool. And then from the kind of build right up there, which was awesome. Okay, so we've got all that. And then we've got, as Zerg, it's kind of like droning up initially, getting a very quick Roach Warren. But so it says 5-minute push. So there's 4. So it's a lot of roaches. So it's like, okay, keeping them busy with with reapers. A really big roach push comes through, and then we've got macroing up into just mass roach hydra, right? For the Zerg is kind of the probably pretty much the end stage, right? I mean, technically there is later if it goes, but we've got so much aggression built in, so that's going to be most of our game doesn't go past that, I would imagine. Who knows, 2v2 maps, right? But Terran play, where does the Terran play go from there? After the Reapers, are we backing up that roach push at all, or are we just kind of macroing while those roaches keep the opponent busy?
I'm doing my best. Like I'd like some help here. So what I do is I throw down 2 reactors after I cut Reapers, and I do it on the proxy barracks. and then I try to make as many Marines I can to back it up.
Right. Okay, yeah, I do remember you said the reactors go down there, so that's kind of cool.
So also, if you slow down here, we switch control of the Reapers. You know, so I have time to macro to go back. We do a lot of that. Like we kind of play Archon mode a little bit, and you know, when one of us has time, one of us takes care of the other one.
I like that, and especially, I mean, there's just times where it's like, if you don't, like, some people are like, oh, I never share unit control, and I'm like, that's okay for, like, learning, I guess. You know, you could be like, oh, this way, you know, you're never making up for your opponent's weaknesses so they can still learn. But in terms of, like, best performance, it's like, there is nothing that hurts me more than playing team games and then seeing, you know, oracles fly into a mineral line or a drop, and my partner's not watching, and instead of being like, hey, dude, this mineral line, and pinging, and then waiting for them to then get over there and pull them away, I can just run their workers for them and save them 15, 16 workers. Like, that's a game-changing thing. So I think just being used to sharing control as well, it's just one of those really awesome, nice things. So I really like it when people do that. So you guys go for this push here. You are really just shoving your way in. Really good micro from them. So one of the things we see, obviously, is, like, good micro from our opponents and no real ranged, like, firepower or oomph to our army, because it's just slow roaches and unupgraded Marines. So this is, like, it's a lot of raw material hitting really hard, but if they're really good at microing back, like we saw this Protoss player especially was, we see that it's kind of hard to get the damage done. So I think arguably we shouldn't be trying to chase them the way we did up that ramp with that attack. Feel like maybe we should have just gone for these expansions and done, like, a little bit of back and forth towards the Stalkers. But, like, once they pull up that ramp especially, I think, like, maybe we should have just pulled back and gone for these two bases, or maybe we should have even initially gone for those. What do you guys think?
I think we try to weaken him with the first push with the Reapers. It's kind of a harassment. And then on the second push, it's not necessarily meant to kill him. It's just kind of meant to get some units out to gear up for the third push.
Yeah.
We try to force a lot of units. And a little bit of confusion here as to which side of the Stalkers to go for. But I don't know. Do you think the second push is good? Do you think it's a good idea to hit it 5 minutes? Or?
It's definitely a surprising thing, just kind of getting in there hard and fast. I mean, it's going to get shut down really hard if they have, like, a tank and a bunker, something like that. So there are scenarios where it will not look good. But I think it's hard enough and hitting fast enough, especially after the Reapers. I think it's, you know, it's good that it keeps them busy. Definitely the highest impact you can get is finding workers, of course. So, like, killing these expansions would be great, just limiting them. But it's not a clear-cut one here. It's not like, oh, you guys made the wrong decision going up that ramp. It's just, if there was, like, a whole lot of workers on that expansion, or either of these expansions, I think it would have been like, oh, yeah, go for those workers. Make the Stalkers come and engage into you, or they're going to lose all the workers on these bases. Because they only had a handful of workers on the low ground. It was okay. I do like waves of aggression. I guess the only thing we could say is if we wanted to be like a real scary play, is maybe we could have a tank or two with that push and, like, actually kind of siege up in their natural with it. Like, if we can't break up the ramp, or siege up, like, on the production. Because if we just look at that and that kind of situation, obviously this is in isolation with looking at this specific game, but if we had just 1 or 2 tanks here, this could be brutal. So if we wanted to go pedal to the metal aggression, I think one of the greatest things we could do, and by the way, sorry, let's I'll link up the document in your oh, I already did. It's linked up in your Discord, so if you guys just get that open on second monitors or on your phone or whatever if you can. And
yeah, sorry, I sent that to the wrong email originally.
Ah, that's all right, no worries. I'm just gonna do some kind of generic coaching notes rather than putting it in line with the build. So one potential to make this push just a bit more complex. Basically, there's 2 things I'm thinking. It's either some ranged, beautiful siege type, powerful push. So basically finding a way to either squeeze a proxied factory and bring a few SCVs and build bunkers with it would turn this into an absolute potential game winner, right? Like, really screw them up if they don't shut this push down. So that's one thing. So Marine Roach push, if we can add a proxy factory and get even 1 tank with the attack, and another tank rallying that rallies in, plus what, like 4 SCVs, just a few to build bunker, 4 SCVs to build bunkers. you can consistently do massive damage. I think that'll put you in a really good position because as we saw here, these guys just microed their hearts out and was so efficient at taking out those slow roaches and marines because they're just not microable units. You add a tank and bunkers and it's like, oh, you guys need to actually fight this before these bunkers finish. And anytime you fight into it as well, the tank siege up, it's doing crazy range damage. So it kind of enables this very slow, unmicroable, immobile roach marine push by saying, hey, this is a problem. You have to fight into this. And it forces them to engage your blob of units because raw material wise, if we look at what they have and what you have, if they fought into you, you'd just win, right? If they just stood their ground and fought, you'd just win the game here. Your roaches are awesome. So that's a nice kind of cheesy type follow-up. The other one is if we rallied something more mobile to hit a mineral line at the same time. So if we look at that, the Reapers don't add much to your frontal push here. I really wish your Reapers waited till just after your frontal push went in and either jump back in the original jump in point up into the main from the right hand side or jumped up the left straight through this mineral line and then up into that mineral line. But the idea is here, once again, if we're not going to use tanks and bunkers, we're going to use threatening multiple mineral lines to say, hey buddy, you have to fight. You've got to actually engage me. You've got to micro in multiple areas. Suddenly this blob of roaches, which running around in a singular blob, it's very easy for them to focus on microing backwards, shooting it down, right? But if they're dealing with Reapers in a mineral line, a bit more chaos, or like a Liberator flies into the main and sieges their main base, and Reapers jump in the left and hit there, suddenly they're just gonna like not be watching or panicking. Either all the workers are dying or all the stalkers are dying. So you're just kind of creating more problems, and it's enabling this rather untechnical blob of units to do more stuff.
That's my specialty.
Sorry, say again?
That's it. Untechnical units are my specialty.
we just need to put them in more mineral lines then. We need to... So what do you guys like the idea of there? So I'm just making sure we have the option. And you guys can always choose one to start with and then just add another one. You're like, oh, this one's not working anymore. Let's not do the tanks and the bunkers. People are really ready for that. Let's do the Reapers in the mineral line and try to squeeze a lib out quick enough. Or maybe it's like a Dropper Lord or something like that. You know, it's like your lair's done. So it's like maybe you have a Dropper Lord that, like, I don't know, loads 4 roaches into the main or something. There's different things that'll work based on what you guys like, but or hit other mineral lines. And the Reapers left over going in right after frontal attack hits. Quick Liberator. It's probably easier than... I don't think a Dropper Lord makes that much sense. I think a quick Liberator would probably be the only other thing that might be able to get over there kind of as the fight's going down.
Can I get a tank out in there at 5 minutes?
So that's why it would probably need to be proxied if you did that. So let's take a look at the build. So you would probably need to proxy the factory like up here. This is why you're getting more and more committed if you're doing this, right? But I think you could do it. Let's take a little look-see. So your factory normally should go down. Should already be down technically, but let's just assume the timings of this game. You're busy, you're doing other things. I guess you're also, I mean, you've got enough gas, but... So that factory goes down there. You do a command center factory. Do you normally try to get the factory earlier, or...
Yeah. I just missed it, I think.
Cool. Yeah. So if that immediately, even with this timing of it, if it built a tech lab immediately... That'd be done about 4:15 or so. Say 4:20. Then if it built a tank. So that would not be ready in time with this factory timing. But if you build the factory on time and if you proxy it, 100% you can have one tank with this push. And then you can have a second one rally in. And you bring 2, 3, 4 SCVs, however many to just build some bunkers. Even just 2 SCVs is like kind of nice. Because you guys don't have a lot of economy. But that way you can really focus on it's like it's more of a goal is actually... cementing a position either on their production and their ramp, like, you know, bunkers and tanks on the low ground there, or at least denying the front bases here, right? And just containing them with bunkers and tanks on the low ground.
Okay.
So now the tank.
Yeah. So you guys reckon you'll try the proxy factory version or just try to split the Reapers up? Which one do you guys like the idea of first?
I like splitting the Reapers off.
Cool.
That makes a lot more sense because they'll be preoccupied in the front, and I can bring them in through the back. That'll be great.
You could potentially do both as well, right? So you could even add... Yeah.
He can do the entire army with the Marines and the Roaches, and then I can come into the back of the Reapers, or vice versa. So we can do it we can split it off.
Yeah. Awesome. I reckon experiment with both of those. I do think that Marine tank push would be super powerful after your initial oomph. But even just splitting the Reapers off, these are some big advantages.
Can I do both? Can I just proxy the factory and split off?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I reckon that'd be great.
How early can I get a tank out, you think, with this build?
I think you can have a tank with the Roaches arriving. Like, at most, just a few seconds behind. But, like, I think as the Roaches get there, easy. Because if you look at the timings of this, like I said, you should be able to have a factory started by 3 minutes for sure. It should be.
So can we go for the main or the natural?
With the tank push?
Yeah.
It's up to you. Whatever you like. It's too tactical. I can't really give any info on that other than situational, right? If they got tanks on that high ground, I don't know. Like, usually you should be able to drop a scan ahead or run a unit ahead to get an idea, but you know, sometimes it's like if they're going like DTs and sky tosses, like, you know, crazy like high tech stuff, it's probably better to just get in there and kill them, right? If you're catching people being really greedy on the tech. But if you're catching people who are expanding, lots of workers on the low ground and stuff, just killing the expansions is enough. So obviously if you can go for the throat, we always want the throat, but if that's leading you to headbutt up ramps into really well defended situations and just lose all your stuff, then it's going to be bad. So just base it on your own feeling. Hopefully your Reapers get a good sense of where you guys are in the game and you guys can just kind of come up with your own rule for that. Yeah, I would say start with a default. Be like, all right, we're always going to go for the ramp, but we'll try to like get a sense and make a quick call, whoever's controlling that front push. Oh shit, no, pull back. Like just make a judgment on the fly, whether it's good or bad. Yeah.
Okay.
First, I decided pushing Lings out at the same time as the Reapers, but on the shared base maps, most of the time you're walled out if it's any combination of Terran or Protoss. So the Lings didn't really do much, so we thought, hey, let's be greedy and get the, you know, get the macro up and get some Roaches out to make it a bit of a stronger push.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, I think that way you've got a more of a one-size-fits-all. Like, you don't look at a map and go, oh, I can't do Roaches here. Like, it's always going to be, you know, they're always going to be a big blob of units that can quickly blast a wall down, get on up there. So yeah, I think that's a good choice. I think there's still power to Zerglings. Like, if they don't have a great wall off at the front, you know, I think Lings are still very deadly and useful, but as you said, they can get just mitigated by a good wall off, right? So if you're going the Zerglings, it forces you to be a more flexible player because you're going to be much cleverer with kind of how you pick your engagements and stuff. So if you want to do the Zergling stuff, you got to be more, you know, more adjustable based to the situation.
So do you feel like this should be the second wave of aggression? We should still have a third, or this is the end, like all in at this point at 5 minutes?
I don't think it's all in necessarily, but I think it is heavily committed what you guys are doing. I mean, you've gone proxy 2 barracks at the start, and then you're building add-ons on the front. So the thing is, if this game drags on long enough, like say those barracks ever get caught out, it's like the Terran production is quite weak here. So let's take a look at the follow-up that you've got at the moment, and let's just, like, I think it's always good to have an attack planned. So that's something that's very important, is right. Even if like people are like, oh, I'm playing macro. I'm like, cool. So what's your attack time? And they go, well, I'm playing macro. And I'm like, well, like, no, you've still got to have some attack. Even if it's a 3 base, 65 SCVs, you want to have an idea of like, oh, I'm going, 7 barracks bio, 2 factory tank with medevacs, right? And you know that I'm usually going to try and push at some point 170, 180 supply with like 2 and like 8+ siege tanks and a lot of bio. You have an idea of this big army where it's going to be really strong, right? Or okay, when 2-2 kicks in or 1-1 and both my Hydra upgrades are ready and I got like a lot of Roach Hydra out, you know, I want to go look for fights because I don't want to give them enough time to get up like tons of disruptors or storm or carriers or whatever, right? So we still always want to have some attack in mind. It's a bit more loosely defined, right? It might be like, as I get a lot of tanks and a lot of bio, right? Or, you know, stuff where it's not like you guys have exact supply counts for when you start building Roaches at the moment and stuff for these early pushes. It's going to be a little more loose. You still want to have that attack in mind. So, I mean, look in here. It looks like it's just Biotank is the plan for the next step for Terran. We'll talk about Zerg in a bit. I know it's going to be Roach Hydra. But what I notice here is it's like, okay, cool. We got double eBay. That's kind of nice. But we're very low on SCVs, right? We're very low on drones. So economically, we are going way up that tech tree with like double upgrades and stuff. But a third command center is so far away. And also, when is Stim and Shields ever going to finish, right? Because we built reactors on the other side of the map, and you actually end up floating your barracks home. If we've built reactors there, I don't like floating the barracks home. I would rather you leave them out there and just keep pumping units off the proxy, because a reactor is such an investment. By the time these barracks get home, I'm like, man, I'd rather we just have Marines awkwardly rallying from the other side of the map, because it's just so many minutes of downtime otherwise, you know?
Okay, I'm gonna do that from now on. I always wondered about that. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to move them.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna do this, it would be more like, oh, you just build Marines without even bothering with the reactors. From like, you just swap into Marines and just bring, 7 Marines with the Roaches or something, and then float them straight home. You don't even bother with the reactors, because otherwise the reactors, they end up like, they're not completely inefficient. It's just like, it doesn't feel quite right to me, and I could be wrong. I could be wrong on that. I'm not too used to building reactors on the other side of the map. Normally I do it for a follow-up all-in attack always. Like I'm like, well, I'm going to keep aggressive, right? Like I might proxy my barracks and then end up building an add-on. But I end up having to be really aggressive because I have too much of my like production kind of exposed out on the map and that sort of thing. So if we are going to leave those barracks out there, if we are going to go up to that next step, we're going bio, we're going tanks, we're going roaches, we're going hydras. I think what would probably be important here is us to kind of define what we want to do next. So I think as far as you guys are concerned, it's just do a big bio tank plus roach hydra attack at some point. That's about as well as it's defined, right?
Yeah, that's basically it. This is our better build. Like, so, I don't want to... I want to spend some time on the second build. You want to go into that?
Yeah, we'll go do that in a sec. Just with this build in terms of the follow-up, should we be going like quicker third command center and higher in the drones is what I'm looking at. So unless we're like, is this attack here, I'm not sure if you guys are as well defined with this attack. I see you guys are going forward and kind of sieging up, but it doesn't look like you're as confident with what you're doing. You're kind of like, oh, I guess we'll just try to siege here. But you're not really scanning ahead. You're afraid of committing. And I think if you guys committed hard to this, that would be good. So the problem is, we've been at just 44 drones. We just built another 10, but we've been at 44 drones, which is not a lot as a Zerg. So we can't really build that much Roach Hydra. Like, our economy is being kind of weak. And as Terran as well, there's no third command center anywhere in sight. So we are kind of in 2-base mode. So economically, you guys actually should be committing really hard to this push here. Or you should be getting a few more drones early, getting a quicker third command center before finishing all this production and upgrades off. And then the attack could be coming later. But what I see is that like we're committing to a lot of army, a lot of tech, and then we're not actually using that army as decisively as we should, and we're also kind of half-assedly going back into economy. So I kind of wish there was a bit more of a sharp edge here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is designed as like a 1-1 push at 10 minutes. Okay. I mean, after two, I know that's late, but after 2 other pushes, like it's, and after a proxy and floating back. Okay, so yeah, you're saying go harder in a macro. I don't think I need it.
Or commit harder to this.
How many racks can I do off 2-base?
5 barracks. So you can go 5 barracks, factory, starport, and you can pump units off this all day. So that's it. I mean, I would be fine for you guys to commit to this push. But if you do, I just want you to be a bit more committed to it. So it's like the way you're using your army here and the fact that like there is a bit of reinforce coming across the map. I'm just not sure if you guys were as focused on this. I guess it's because you were waiting for the upgrades, right? Which is why you weren't committing at first.
Right.
Cool. So yeah, I think it's okay then. As long as you guys do always commit pretty hard to this attack, or really look for the opportunity, because you guys definitely need to do some big damage here. So in this fight, I think one of the big things that needed to happen was just sending someone home to go micro, right? Because those zealots do so much damage. I mean, it's good that you focused on the fight. That was the most important thing. But just would have been, I guess, cool if the barracks quickly changed rally points / roaches that were popping out kind of kept coming. But there was kind of like that prism came in, I guess, at the perfect moment where kind of caught you off guard. If we go back to that, I want to dissect that really quickly, because I think it's kind of a silly way to lose the game that a lot of us lose the game, is like a prism or something hits us right there. So better overlord coverage whenever you build overlords. If you can just like build overlord. We've got like 1 or 2 out, but I think having overlord vision all over that edge is so important, because the fact that there is this space and this prism, it does, fortunately for us, go through our vision, but it easily could have come along the bottom and not been spotted for quite a long time. We're actually really lucky it flew into the spore crawler there, but that would be nice. I mean, this map's kind of... This map, you just got to be wary. This whole side, it's the same side you guys attacked with the Reapers. Not only do you have the Reaper jump in ledge, it's just... Look at how far the front of you guys' third base is from this whole gigantic area. You can get dropped in your main and even your natural. A lot of maps have this where there's just one player gets the arse of the base, like where you get the shitty area to defend where every bit of air harassment and drops is going to come in. And so for me personally, I would have had a bit more priority on having a unit on the towers and maybe having like just an overlord or 2 out on this left-hand side of the map to hopefully see things before they arrive. But it's just map specific for every map, just a little heads up. And then to deal with that, so just in terms of like control groups, I noticed you've like control grouped all the roaches as they're coming across. So in that scenario, a really good thing is if you saw that prism coming, I would just build a round of roaches, the next round of roaches, and I wouldn't control group them, and I'd just right click them to the edge of the base. So like 10 roaches or however many I build are just going to be stuck in my main, no control group, and they'll automatically be ready to defend whatever drops in.
Okay.
Yep. Because you normally control click the eggs to hotkey your army, right? I think. Looks like you do.
I'm not the Zerg.
Is he not on call?
I'm on the call. I'm just not the Zerg. I don't know if he does. I don't know if he does it off the eggs. I know he hotkeys a lot, but I don't know if he does it off the eggs.
But did he walk away?
He might have walked away for a sec. He's got a family, so...
Okay, no worries.
To deal with.
Yeah, I just, sorry, I assumed he was listening the whole time. Okay. I'm like, you're like, oh, I'm not the Zerg. I'm like, I know, but isn't he there? He'll be back in a sec. No worries, no worries. So stop control. It's just like break that habit, basically, is whatever. So we'll remind him of that. It's in the document. Stop control grouping eggs for 1 round. And just click.
I'm back.
Hey, how you doing? So just a little tip
That's
for
funny.
you.
I've been talking this whole time.
Oh, really?
I was wondering why no one was responding.
I was like, all right, I guess you're just being silent. That's fine. I don't know. Yeah, so if you ever look at Discord, by the way, notice how it goes green around your little circle whenever you speak. Yeah.
So I've been trying to get my overlords in better position in all maps, but especially this one. I make sure that my second one goes to that, basically that little step up, because I know that's where we come through on the other side.
Yeah.
And in this case, by the time I saw the zealots coming in, it was almost a matter of just push and almost a base trade scenario. But
yeah.
Do you agree with the 1 guy in offense and 1 guy in defense?
I think that's only just like for a moment. If it was more serious, one of you guys could have been like, take the army. I'm gonna try and deal with these zealots for a moment. So really comes down to what flows for you guys. I do think controlling the army was more important there. I think honestly though, like as the Zerg, it's just saying, okay, attacking and pushing is the main thing, but just a few things where it's like, hey, if we did realize how vulnerable and how droppable this side of the base is, have a unit on the tower, have 1 or 2 overlords out there, much better chance of you seeing it ahead of time. Because if you got even 10, 20 seconds to prepare, so easy to deal with. But even if you see it only as the zealots are coming in, just build a round of roaches, don't control group them, right click them to kind of roughly where the trouble is, right? And that big round of roaches will eventually deal with it. So if you can do that in the midst of it, it just changes it from losing 50 drones and literally all production and mining to we lose 15 or 20, shit goes bad, but hey, we're still killing them on the other side of the map, and it just makes sure you've got something in kind of set up to stabilize yourselves, that's all.
Well, I could have brought my queens.
That too, yeah.
I could have brought my queens over to try to handle that if I would have seen it earlier.
Yeah. I mean, queens aren't the most reliable, so definitely just like the building roaches is like the lower APM way of doing it, right? Because you do have all your queens on a control group though. That's not too bad. Yeah, you could go to A move, build roaches, right click those roaches. Don't control group them, no control group, unless you have a drop defense specialty group that you're used to using. But overall, this is good. So yeah, I thought you guys were just gonna chill for a few minutes here, and then you did actually push. You were just waiting for the upgrades to kick in, which is totally fine. Let's go look at the other build order. So I think with that big push that you guys end up doing on the front, what can we add? Once again, something to hit somewhere else. So single dropship in the main base, single liberator in the main base, something like that. Even just a single liberator or a dropship kind of queuing into one of those bases as your main attack hits. It just exponentially makes it harder for your opponents to deal with. So that's a big piece of advice, I would say. If you can split off like one dropship to the main or one liberator or whatever, it's gonna just give you much higher success rate, because even when they hold the attack at the front, you're really creating some havoc. So having that as a rule should be nice. Even though we're still trying to break the front, we don't want to, split 4 medevacs off and literally take all the bio out of your push, because then suddenly your frontal push might just get wiped. But yeah, I think just that idea of always adding a little bit more problems, so to make it a little bit more flexible and hard for your opponents to deal with will be awesome. So let's hop into the other replay now and look at the other build order, Just promote to lobby host.
We got some work to do on this one, but we'll show you the general idea of what we're trying to do.
All right, let's take a look. So from the look of it, we have Big Ling Flood. Is what that sounds like?
Yeah, pretty much.
What's Terran doing? It's 3 minutes, 4 Marines, 2 SCVs, 12 speed.
So I cut it 15 here to make 3 racks, and I want to know if that's good or not, or if I should just keep, maybe make the push later. We try to be going into the base at 3 minutes.
Classic 3-rack speedling push, not bad. I mean, it's yeah, it's not bad. It's just just a very committed push, right? There's not a lot of flexibility you guys have behind this, especially as the Terran, but in terms of just sharp, hard-hitting attacks, yeah. I mean, this is gonna be a bit of a nightmare for your opponents to deal with. I think one thing we can look at here is you have no idea what you're going into. So we could have had overlords, one on each ramp, right? So I mean, you don't want to lose it. So I'm not sure, but how long those overlords take to get over there. But if you can see the high ground vision, you can like pick which ramp you want to attack a bit easier, right?
It's nice to be sending that overlord to the base that we're going to, essentially.
Yeah, even the second overlord could be getting over there. So your first overlord, you could send it between the two, right? Like it could go on a straight path through the middle, because then it's going to be like hard for them to see it and stuff and come down and snipe it. And then you can kind of like move it to the side and just be like, oh, what's at this ramp? Oh, what's at this ramp? And just check. You also probably want to send 2 Zerglings straight ahead, or to see what you're going into. If the Overlord spotted one side, send 2 Zerglings ahead of the pack up the other one. So this is just kind of like, all right, let's make sure we're checking what we're going into, especially on these separated maps. Pick the player we're going for, and usually there's one that's a bit of an easier target or a more important target. So build 2.
Here's we get to see overcharge.
Only last 12 seconds. So your Marines, they might have been able to just move forward and click on the shield battery. So if you walk them right up to the cybercore in the gateway and focus the battery, you could have killed that. So that might have been the way to get rid of that quicker. I'm not sure how many Marines could actually reach the shield battery there. I think 4 or 5 could, but just something to keep in mind. So Overlord goes straight closer to spot ramp to find weak point. That's number 1, right? Number 2 is 2 Ling Scout ahead. And obviously just random notes. Click shield battery if you can. If you could click that shield battery down, always going to be more important. Or depower it, but the shield battery itself very weak. That one's a bit far back, so not the easiest. So your nightmare here is, I mean, it's just any rush like this is going to have such a high win percentage on these maps where they're separated, right? Because you're just simply doing a very quick 2-on-1 situation. So your nightmare is if your opponent's scout realize what's happening and go, hey, wait a second. And they did actually see like 3 barracks, for instance, right? So they did realize what was happening. If the Protoss player had fully walled off his base with like a gateway and, you know, made like a sentry and just started making more stalkers and sentries and adepts, could have held on his own, and then Terran just turtles up and gets out tanks or Hellions or whatever cool shit he's going for, and they can hold on. But it really requires an extreme response from them, and you know, a shield battery and 1 stalker is not going to cut it. So these 2 players, they kind of scouted, but they didn't pay attention to what that scouting actually saw, which was a quick gas in a pool, quick 3 barracks. A lot of people in team games, you know, they'll go, oh, this could be aggressive, but they're not really thinking about just how extreme that aggression is. So, I mean, this is just a good cheesy rush. Now, in terms of the SCVs, I guess those are to build bunkers, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things you could have done here is you can actually drill through. So if you're ever up against a Protoss, you could actually mineral walk onto the mineral patch and then be attacking that stalker from behind. Now, the reason that's important, because his pylon's actually not well placed, so he can't do this. He can't wall off with a gateway because it's actually out of power range over on the left. But if his pylon was up into the left 1 space, he'd be able to do that. So the problem here is if a probe came over and just put a gateway down behind the stalker, right? But if you mineral walked your SCVs through, so you click on the mineral patch and then attacked it from behind, he can't wall off behind that stalker because your SCVs are blocking it. So just a cool little tidbit you can do with that.
All right.
Drill through the unit holding the choke point. And you know how to do that with the mineral walking, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
So is this 2 all in, or is there a follow-up to this?
This is pretty committed. I wouldn't do this on a map with a combined choke if they've scouted and adjusted well. But I think it would still work really well on a combined choke against a lot of players because they either won't scout or they'll scout and they won't react hard enough, right? So I think it hits hard enough and fast enough where like you might be like, oh, is this 2 all in? Let's do it 30 seconds later with a handful more workers and an expansion. Well, that's actually worse because then you're just giving them time to get up a tank and a bunker. You're giving them time to get up a sentry or whatever. Is this very committed? Yes, this is quite a wild, aggressive attack. In terms of the follow-up, I mean, yeah, you guys have just got to make sure you explode into droning, explode into a command center at a certain point. So for me, this would usually be the point. It would be right about the time I'm pushing up the ramp. I would say any more Marines I build now, it's going to be 18 seconds to build the Marine, a minute to get across the map. I would just kind of go, I don't think any Marine that arrives a minute and a half from now is really going to do much. Maybe the same for Zerglings. Maybe I'll build 1 more big round of Zerglings, but nothing after that. So it's kind of saying, well, we've committed this much to the attack. As long as we have a sharp point where we transition back into macro, we can turn a very all-in build into something that has a next step, right? So it's just about defining that. So probably right as you attack, you could do that. Right as you go up the ramp, transition.
I try to get the gas down before I go in and get guys on gas. But other than that, I don't really have that much.
Well, I think the CC going down, the command center, has got to be the most important thing as well. I like the gas because you want to build add-ons, right, with the barracks. So it is important to get that gas. Gas early enough so you can get add-ons. I would prefer the add-ons here. You've already got 3 barracks. You have to go for a very bio-heavy. So you're kind of playing 3 racks. So you kind of just... I would be like, I want to get a tech lab and a reactor or 2 reactors and a tech lab. Basically, I just want to get up stim started and bio-producing off buildings with add-ons, get an engineering bay for a +1 attack, and then I would try to go for a factory and a starport. So this would be a lot like a kind of a 3 racks TVP follow-up. where it's priorities, add-ons on racks, +1 attack upgrade on single eBay, and then factory. You know, it was I could say stim upgrade, then factory for medevacs, right? Factory into starport reactor swap around. Before all of that, CC has to go down though, of course. You can't do that on one base, or it's going to be kind of completely all in on when stim and shields and stuff is finished. And obviously for Zerg, it's like just trying to remember to hit some injects while this is going down and just hold down the drone key. You're going to be losing Zerglings no matter what, so you don't need to build too many Overlords. Like 1 or 2 already in production would be great. But if you're just injecting, droning, and then remember when the fight fizzles out or you've got a bunch of time in your APM, it's remembering to go take a third base.
Yeah, I'm basically at 3 injects on each of my queens without a third, and I'm very low on drones as well.
So this is a good tip for both of you, since you're both very aggressive, which is a great way to play team games. Especially if you guys have had a long day, you prefer to talk a bit of shit and joke around while you're playing rather than being too serious. It's much better than go, oh god, these guys are proxying barracks and running Reapers and Marines and Zerglings in. You guys get to be the ones who are forcing reactions. So what we see here is you guys go to your camera. I'm going to go to DeLeBron's camera. DeLeBron, sorry, for the last 30 seconds.
SCV ready. Go, go, go. SCV ready.
Okay. So check this out. Staring at the front, staring at the front, staring at the front, staring at the front, staring at the... You guys know how to follow camera in the replay, by the way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just checking. Some people never use that. So we've just spent 30 seconds staring at our Marines. All right, let's check sort of okay's camera for the last 20, 30 seconds.
I hope this is better.
I don't think it will be. Let's see, though. Alright, so we're on 2x speed now. Let's go back to faster.
It's time to inject, spread creep.
I hear Loco. Loco's shouting. He says, Queen is here. It's time to inject, spread creep, and well, he's telling you to macro and you're still staring at your Zerglings.
Yeah.
So what's important here is 2 things. Remember we already talked about the Overlord and the 2 Zerglings scouting ahead? Right now, you guys are like, what are we walking into? Because the whole time you guys are watching your units walking into the shadows. You had no idea what was ahead of you. So that's part of why you were staring at it, just because you didn't have information. So whenever you don't have information and you're kind of blindly walking your army into a scenario, you're naturally going to tunnel vision on it because you have no idea what's out there, right? The boogeyman is under the bed, right? You don't know what's going on. So already, you guys probably would be a bit better at this, doing what we talked about with the Overlord and the 2 Zerglings going ahead. That's just going to be, oh, yeah, we know. There's one Stalker up there. It's cool. We don't have to look at it till we actually got the ramp. The other thing is just kind of building into yourself that rule of right before an attack happens, you need to know you're going to miss macro, right? You guys are going to stare at this. This is the most important thing to focus on. So that we basically say we are going to miss macro really hard. Let's prepare for it. So be prepared. What does that mean? It means the 30 seconds leading into an attack, or not even 30 seconds, let's say 15 seconds, right? Because that's a lot of time in StarCraft, is so important to kind of stack up on our macro tasks, queue up extra macro to mitigate the damage. So what do we mean? Inject, build, spend all of our lava, build extra OVs, all right before the push goes in, right? What does that mean? Drop mules, build SCVs, put on gas, etc. We forgot to put on gas in this game. We took the gas. We only had one guy mining it the whole time while the push happened. You know, whatever little things we needed. But drop mules, build SCVs, put on gas, build depot, whatever. So just, if you guys can both make a habit there, don't get to like, oh, we're going to attack, and your blood pressure starts going up and you start getting more and more tunnel visioned in on this microcosm of the game. It's, hey, until we actually get to that ramp, until we're actually breaching up that ramp, focus more than ever on like injects, creep spread, or, you know, building drones, dropping mules, building SCVs. So we should have extra SCVs queued up now. We should have extra. Injects going down. So just imagine, inject. We don't actually have a lot of lava here, so you'd set your rally point though, right? You'd be like, well, I'm going to be looking at the fight and droning off my hotkeys. So you'd change the rally point on your main hatchery down to your natural. Just so that you know they're going to go to the base where, even though you need 2 more workers on the main minerals, you know you're not going to be looking at it for a while. So if you build 7 or 10 drones off this base because you're busy microing for the next 2 minutes, you know, we don't want to end up on 24 workers on the main. We'd rather those go to the expansion. Likewise, who knows? Maybe we go, okay, I'm going to grab an SCV from my main and I'm going to send it down to stand at the natural. I don't have money for a command center, but I know that I'm going to have 500 minerals, 600 minerals or whatever when I finally get a chance to look back at my base. And that's the first thing I do whenever I look back at my base. So you're kind of just planning your macro ahead of time. And these little details can turn your cheesy, all-in, one-dimensional attack into something where even if it doesn't do as much damage as you'd like, you'll actually have a way better follow-up just because it's more planned out.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I call it checkpoints. Like, we have a checkpoint right before we go in. We gotta hit X amount of things. I just didn't do it right.
Hells yeah. Awesome. So yeah, I like that. It's like, you know, some people think of it in terms of triggers. Right before this, do this. Like, I always tell people in 1v1, you know, it's like, if you're going for a big attack, don't click your units in from across the map. Click it to a staging point, somewhere just outside of the actual area where the fight's going to start. And even if you delay your attack by 5 seconds, it's better to do that. Get all your macro done. Make sure everything's organized. It's like in your rhythm. It's on your schedule. And then commit to it, you know? Whereas the moment you're like, oh shit, my units are already in the base. I clicked them like 30 seconds ago from across the map. Now they're in the base and you're like looking at the, you're disrupting your own rhythm, right? So much to do in a StarCraft game where it's like, we become superhuman even with low APM if we do things on our schedule, our rhythm. But the moment we start like disrupting our own rhythm, just because we're like, oh damn, this thing's happening. And obviously our opponents can do that if they're really good at harassing as well. It makes us infinitely less efficient with how we get our actions done. Whereas, you know, inject, hold down the drone key, build 2 overlords, set rally point. It's like done in a fraction, you know, of the time. But the moment we're doing that haphazardly while dealing with other things, it's like, you know, we come back, we've got 1,000 minerals, we haven't dropped a mule in a few minutes or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, I think that's a really good cheesy rush. I think it's fine the way you guys are executing it. Arguably, you could hide it better, actually. So what do I mean by that? Hide it better by doing just 1 racks in the wall, question mark? And, you know, plus using second depot to wall off. So the thing is, that would hurt your build because you're getting a second depot slightly earlier, I believe, to block the scout if it comes in. Problem is in that game, your 3rd racks was in view. So the alternative is at least just make sure your 3rd racks is a little further back because the probe walked right up to your wall and it could see the 3rd barracks as well as the 2 in the wall. So just a tiny bit further back and it would have been out of sight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The depot might be hard because it really, really hurts my build. Should I be cutting at 15 there? Is that the right build?
I think so. I think you guys have to, like, 2 Marines or whatever the number difference is when you guys hit is going to change the game. I think that's such a sharp attack. I think it's better there to do that because it's just an acknowledgement of your strategic edge. If you're doing an all-in build, hitting 10 seconds faster with 2 more Marines, that is huge, right? Because what are you doing? You're sharpening the edge of your blade. I think there's nothing, you know, if the edge here was, oh, this is a light Zergling Marine harassment, yeah, maybe cutting workers isn't the right thing because your edge is the follow-up, right? You're trying to force more of an overreaction. You're trying to force more of a distraction. But I think in this case, it's like much more, you're not trying to force an overreaction or anything like that. This is, no, we're trying to kill one of them. Preferably 2 of them. Preferably we kill one, we go over and kill the other one. So I think, honestly, anything you can do to make this hit harder and faster, like you could argue, oh, proxy the barracks as well. Make it even, you know, make the Marines get there even closer. There's a give and take to everything. But I think the way you're doing it is pretty damn efficient. I think, yeah. So I think in terms of refinement, it's just refine the follow-up, get the gas down faster so you can start getting those add-ons down. Nice quick command center to follow it up. and just work your way up into. You'd naturally have a really big stim bio push, maybe 5-6 minutes later, and that could join up maybe with Ravager Zergling. Maybe you do it on your own, and Zerg goes into Mutalisks. So there's a few different ways depending on how you guys like to play it out.
Cool. Do I have time for one more question?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we actually took a little bit to get started into the call and stuff. So if you guys had another replay you wanted to look at quickly, we could do that.
We could just ask questions. I got a couple.
Yeah.
How do you deal with carriers?
So Terran Zerg versus carriers. Good question. Cool. So in general, I mean, you guys have, I'm sure, heard the great StarCraft advice. Why did you let them mass carrier, right? You know, it's like whenever it's like, how do you stop mass BC? Like, why did you let them get mass BC? So there is always a factor of that, right? There's so much context to how people get to mass carrier. But let's just go into the theory first of all. So how do you fight that with Terran and Zerg? So Thors are amazing, right? So Thors really do well versus carriers at the moment, right? In the recent patch, because Thor's got an extra anti-air range, I believe, and they shoot really fast, they do great. The problem is they are very weak to things like disruptors and some other things. So Thors do great. So that's one thing. EMP, not that amazing. Zoning nukes can be a nice thing, right? In terms of, in general, nukes for area control, and especially if they're kind of sitting on top of cannons and batteries and stuff, can be nice, but that's very advanced as well. I would personally, the thing I'm always going to do when there's Sky Toss is Vipers plus Abduct. That's going to be my biggest focus, is trying to just yoink carriers where I can, which is super positional based. It's like you've got a corruptor Viper ball that kind of flies around. You're always looking to come from a kind of surprising angle. You know, you're picking off observers. You're trying to abduct oracles if they're using revelation to make sure they don't maintain vision on you. Because obviously if you're just like walking through watchtower vision, marching towards them, High Templar can come forward and feedback you. And feedback just got +1 range as well. So you do need to be careful. But that's what I would focus on. If it's unsupported carriers, then just Mass Corruptor will destroy them, right? But it's always about...
You don't target the interceptors, then you just target the...
Absolutely have to shift click those carriers, yeah. If you absolute waste of time. If you're fighting interceptors with corruptors, the only time that's okay is if you're above like 35 spore crawlers or something. Like, you know, you've like lured the carriers into that, and you fall back kind of behind the spores, and you're like, all right, let's wait for the interceptors to all die, and then the corruptors can go forward. But if you ever catch the carriers on their own, you just shift click them down as quickly as possible. Move, focus fire. Obviously, this is though where a few storms, a few archons, or a big pack of void rays can ruin your day, because void rays do really well versus corruptors, as does storm and archons if you're too clumped up.
What's better, tanks or lurkers for defense?
In general, or...
Ooh, if one of us has to make defense.
Well, it's not even just defense. It could be pushing and securing a position, but I would think we wouldn't both want to make lurkers and tanks, I guess.
I mean, lurkers can do more drastic damage. So I think lurkers, especially once range is done, remember that's a hive tech upgrade. They only have 8 range until they get that hive tech range upgrade. Are more devastating, right? So if they charge in, your lurkers will be better, right? So tanks can be broken a little bit more just by a big overwhelming charge, right? Or a big flank. Flanking is still good versus lurkers, but because lurkers do that big line of damage, it just stacks up more, right? If people try to push through, like, lurkers are going to annihilate any units, right? Whereas tanks aren't quite as multi-purpose, but tanks have more range, right? More range. So 13 range versus the 10 of the upgraded lurker. So it really is, do you want the unit that, you know, you get 20 lurkers up, people never want to engage that with ground units, right? But the tanks just have more range. So it's personal choice there. I would really go with whatever you guys are more comfortable with the composition. It's like, oh, I'm going Roach Hydra plus 2/2 upgrades already. Like, I should go Lurkers, right? Maybe. Whereas in terms of like, if you're playing Bio, where do you go in the later stages of the game? I guess it's probably part of the question you guys have, right? You don't want to end up with one guy on Lurkers and the other guy going 4 factory tank to complement the Bio.
Right. We've had overlap with that.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said for just doing lots of kind of drops and multitasking, because Bio's strength can scale very late into the game if you use them well. So that means multi-prong, right? Means multi-prong, lots of expanding, lots of drops. Not as helpful in the big frontal fights once you get all that splash damage though, right? So, I mean, where do you want to go as the Terran player? If you can get a big enough economy, I would say, you know, heavy BC is probably still the dream, just because Yamato's so good and the ability to teleport around, but incredibly expensive, right? You've got to get the double upgrades for them. You need so much money, so much gas. An intermediate step is a sort of mech transition, right? You still need good ups, but like Thors, for instance, right? Thors and tanks, right? Where you've got a big ground, but then you've also got the Thors for dealing with carriers and things. And ranged lib plus bio is also a more mobile option, right? Because the libs are very mobile compared to siege tanks, they run around quite quickly with your bio. They still have to siege up, but range lib plus bio is a more mobile choice. I think, honestly, though, I wouldn't be looking to go to the mega late game because you don't have carriers, you don't have tempests. I kind of feel like outside of extremely good spellcaster usage and stuff, like it's gonna feel like the Protoss army is probably a bit easier to use. You know, you get a mothership in there, whole big pack of carriers, some High Templar underneath, and then you've got, you know, either a whole bunch of tanks defending it on the ground or something like that. But I'm not a fan of going to the mega late game in team games. You know, this is not really my specialty.
We play it. Neither are we. We just charge.
Yeah, I'd be like, you know, if you guys are like, oh man, we died to carriers, like I would probably focus your mental efforts on like, wait, like let's improve the first or the second or the third attack. You know, oh, we should have been more decisive in the mid game and tried to, you know, winch open some damage at that point. So I think, yeah, I'm not too big on the like let's play the perfect late game. When I do, it's just like spellcaster usage like crazy, right? As Zerg. For Terran, if I'm on bio, I kind of find I hit a point where I'm like, well, this is effing awkward. So the thing is, if you want to play that point, like I said, you need to expand a lot. You need to expand a lot, which is very mechanical. It takes a lot to take bases, float them over, build gases, build planetaries, build turrets. You got to take a ton of bases, even just for the bio play to scale, and you got to multitask a lot. You got to start dropping bio in from all angles and stuff. So if you guys let the game go past a certain point and you want to get good at that point, there needs to be some pretty sick Terran mechanical play coming in. So sharper, harder hitting timing attacks might actually be the answer. And if they're like barely breaking like a tank push you guys do with carriers, think of like doubling down on it. Maybe you should have brought 6 SCVs and started building mass missile turrets outside their third base with your slow tank push. And that actually can work. So maybe that's the answer if someone's rushing Skytoss.
Okay.
Awesome.
Chambers, you got anything else?
I was actually kind of wondering what replay, you know, I guess how you see the replay. That's not just the standard where you get a little more information. Just if we're actually trying to look at some of this stuff.
I think there's a lot of different metrics. I think analyzing replays is so helpful.
What's the one that Map uses? Like what's the observer mode? He's talking about the observer mode that you can see like the SCVs that died on the left.
Oh right, yeah. So to actually see that, I mean, with like the pop-ups on screen, you actually need that to be hosted on the WCS GameHeart mod. So like if you guys hop out of game and go custom game, you can see me show this on stream for the people who are watching. So I'll hop out of party here. If we go custom, melee, if you pick a map, rather than going create lobby, you can go create with mod. And there's a WCS Game Heart mod. So if the game is hosted on that, so it has to be a custom game, all those pop-ups will happen. Now, obviously, if it's not hosted on that, and I'm just loading one of my ladder replays, I still have a different interface, which is the Game Heart replay interface. So you guys can download that if you want to use it. Does show a little bit more info. Even with like the default or the WCS 3.0, you can basically see all the same things. I think definitely don't use default. Use WCS 3.0 or Game Heart. So if you go options, observer and replay, there is a observer interface drop-down menu and replay interface drop-down menu. And yeah, essentially just using the tabs, just learn the hotkeys from the drop-downs on the top left. Other than those, Control R will show like workers killed is the main one I use. Control plus R for workers lost. I guess I sometimes use Control A for like active forces and stuff, but pretty rarely.
You can even see though the resource advantage, like income advantage, and
yeah, that is
like
actually
that.
Yeah. I mean, you can bring that up on the income tab, or do you mean like the actual graph that shows the income advantage?
Like the actual graph.
Yeah, that's only if you've got the mod open. So the game would need to have been hosted
okay.
in that mod for the graph. Yeah. Yeah.
So
otherwise,
we can't use our own replays to do that.
No, you just have to look at just press the income tab, I for income, and you don't get that graph picture. You can usually piece it together. It's just not quite as quick. There is a few replay tools. So there's like a Zephyr created one, and there's SE2 replay stats and stuff. I don't use them that much, but if you want like those sites that kind of pass some of that information for you, they do help a little bit with that stuff. But I think mostly just yeah, for me, it's always kind of like just grabbing the replay and then just honing in on different details. Like, let's just keep an eye on what timing we hit and so on. And I think benchmarks are the most powerful thing. So especially for you guys, because you hit such attack timings, benchmark that 3-minute timing. How many Marines, how many Zerglings, how many workers did you both have? Did you tick all the boxes that should be ticked behind it? You're hitting your roach attack with your Marines off your reactors. How many roaches do you have? What timing exactly do you get inside their base with it? Blah, blah, blah. And I think that's usually super powerful. As long as you can just benchmark, you can always really quickly see how well you're executing and track the progress as well.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, I'm good. Are you good?
Yeah.
Thanks for the normal coaching and giving us a little insight. It means a lot.
No worries. Thanks a lot. It's, I don't get to coach twos very much, so it's a good breath of fresh air.
Yeah, the notes are huge. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I really look forward to you guys splitting your opponent's attention a bit more. I want to see that proxy factory tank push. So drop by Twitch chat and let us know. I want to hear about, are you guys just bunkering people out of the game with that tank push? Are the Reapers getting in the mineral line and killing people? With the later pushes, hopefully there's a Liberator or a drop sliding into a mineral line at the same time. Really curious to see how it goes. So drop me a line and let me know.
Yeah, we'll adjust and we'll let you know.
All right, sweet as. Good night, guys. It was great chatting to you.
All right, thanks.
Have a good night, Jared.
Awesome. All right, guys, it was a 2v2 coaching session. We don't get to do that very often, but a good chance to talk through some stuff and kind of look at some details. They already really well planned aggressive play. So